I am Laura Curlin. I am a first-time lay alternate to General Convention, and so far, you might have seen me around at diocesan events, diocesan convention. I'm in the San Francisco Deanery. This is my first time going to General Convention.
And you are from what I understand, the youngest alternate too, or the youngest in the deputation.
Yeah, I'm the youngest in the deputation. I'm definitely not the youngest of the whole General Convention, which is great. But for our deputation, I am.
Well, we're so excited to hear that you're there. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what called you to be part of our deputation of California to the General Convention, and how's the process been for you?
Sure. I think a long time ago, when I was a kid, when I would think about what I would be doing in the church when I was a grown-up, I thought I was going to be a singer in the choir. That was my shtick. That was what I was going to do. But since I've been in California over at St. Cyprian's, I've been taking on like little bits more and more, just because there's always more work to do. And I hadn't really ever thought about General Convention or the really big picture governance of the church until after I got more and more involved at the diocesan level. Had a blast at a couple of diocesan conventions. Just love seeing how elections work, how resolutions are passed, and how all the sausage gets made. It really piqued my interest for how that works at the whole church level. So at this point, I've both been learning a lot, just learning by doing on the ground, and the whole run up to General Convention, of course. But it still feels like the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more work to be doing in the future.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like to arrive in Baltimore at this convention that's a little bit unusual in that we can't all be there. Adia and I were supposed to be there, but we couldn't get credentialed because of COVID. Just describe the scene for us.
Sure. Traveling during COVID is always weird. Just a weird vibe overall, but I was able to get here after a long travel day east. And so when I first got here, I was still pretty bleary from just lack of sleep and how long had I been on a plane and where am I right now? But walking into the convention center, I didn't necessarily have all the expectations of people that have done this a lot of times before. So for me, it feels like a big group of Episcopalians getting together. It's so much smaller than it would have been otherwise, but it still feels like the big tent of the church coming together in a warm and fuzzy way.
I know that you went there as an alternate, and then suddenly things changed for you on the first day of convention. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened on the first day and how you went from being an alternate to a deputy to being back an alternate?
Sure. So traveling during COVID, we all tried to be really flexible, and one of the lay deputies had a flight delay that kept him from getting in on time for the very first session. So for that very first session, which was mostly just organizing business and setting up how things were going to be run later, I filled in, was able to step in, make sure we had a full deputation contingent represented. And then as soon as Chris Hayes' flight did get in and he did make it in, was able to swap it back over to him so he could take his seat at the table.
So you definitely fulfilled the whole purpose of being an alternate, which is to fill in that kind of situation. But when you're not a full deputy, what is the work like? What is a typical day like? Well, I don't know if you know what a typical day like is yet, but what is it looking like so far?
So 2 days so far, what they have looked like I've mostly been sitting in the alternate section of General Convention, which is at the back of the room, so we can see, looking forward, all the tables of all the dioceses ahead of us, following along with what's happening, spending a lot of time on Twitter. School Twitter is a great place to be, and yeah, following along and kind of just being ready if anything does come up, really being able to spring into action when a flight was delayed or anything like that comes up. I'm honestly hoping for the rest of convention to, stay boring insofar as people stay healthy for our deputation. If I get called in because someone's sick, that's the bad scenario. we don't want that. So I'm just happy to be a pinch hitter. In the lead up, all of the alternates pitched in with tracking the legislative committees. This was, from what I've heard, quite different from how other conventions have worked, because all of the legislative committee work was done online. So we're spending a lot of quality time on Zoom, watching committee hearings as they happen. I was able to testify in a couple of hearings, but that was all kind of in the run up.
What have been some of the highlights for you so far in the past 2 days?
Everything's been great. Say being on the floor is really exciting, just probably because it was unexpected. I didn't necessarily expect to be able to do that, but I got a picture of myself on the floor, and that's very, very fun. On a more serious note, I think there's really important work happening. Some of the resolutions that we've been passing on, especially around racial reconciliation, things like studying the church's involvement with Indigenous boarding schools, is just such important work. So even though I'm kind of cheering from the sidelines, I'm really, really happy to be able to just be a witness to that work happening. And there's so much more. There's so much more of that I hope we get done in the next 2 days.
Is there any one particular piece of legislation or area that you are really watching closely?
I'm always tempted to say all of it, but that's how you end up spending too many hours on Zoom during legislative committee meetings. One piece that I worked on more directly was a resolution that would support reform to the Electoral Count Act, which we were really luckily able to get passed through the House of Deputies on the consent calendar yesterday. So that was, I'd say, another highlight, something that I worked on along with the rest of the deputation, got through and at least got through the House of Deputies and is on to the next steps.
How will you inspire other young adults like you in our Diocese of California to also be part of General Convention in our local diocesan convention as well?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not scary. It's a little scary. Like if someone threw a physical copy of the Constitution and came and said you'd want to duck. It's a big fat book. But it's pretty easy to do baby steps, and either to just take a look. All of the sessions are available streaming online, so if you're just curious, you can take a peek and see what is happening. Diocesan convention is also a lot of fun, and it's only 1 day, or 2 days sometimes. So that's also great. I think if I were to claim a fault, it would be trying to track too many things and trying to get a little bit of a lot of different things. And it would probably be smarter, and I would recommend anyone else to pick a couple areas and really try to get deeper into them, because that's one of my big takeaways from this whole process.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us. I know it's been a whirlwind. Anything else you want to say before we let you go? Back to your work.
Mostly just thank you both for your work. I know you're not able to be here in Baltimore, but it's such important work to get some of this news back out to the diocese, out into the world as well. spending a lot of time on Twitter, but still tweeting with the same, small group of folks. So really appreciate all the work that goes into making sure what we're doing here gets heard and seen.
Before you go, I just want to know if you're going to have time to do something fun while you're in Baltimore.
This is fun. This is fun. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I'm having fun. There is a Maryland night, so I'm going to do a boat tour, staying nice and outside, and relatively COVID safe on the last night. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully that will be after all the work is done. We're able to just kick back and relax, and pat ourselves on the back.
Thank you so much, Laura. We're so happy to see you, and we'll see you when you get back to California. So
Thank you. Safe travels, and thank you for doing this work.
Of course, thank you both.